So good to see everyone here today. Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to Fellowship Hall. I am Rochester Rotary President Jeff Powell, and I welcome you to this meeting at Rochester Rotary Club. We have a lot to get to today, a lot of good stuff. So let's get right to it. I call this meeting to order. We are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, but I ask you to remain standing after the pledge for the reflection, which will be led by past President Peter Cutterhouse. He's a Rotarian since 1980. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As autumn approaches, we're busy preparing our yards and our homes, but most of all, preparing our minds for what is to follow. Yes, our Rochester winters. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh no, I'm not looking forward to the next few months. But if we just take time to look and listen to the sights and sounds of fall, the flocks of geese flying in perfect patterns over our head, pumpkin patches sporting their beautiful orange sunset colors, leaves turning shades of bright yellow and red. Yes, there's much to enjoy in the present, especially the fellowship we're going to share today. Hope springs eternal in the human breast. Let us not lose it. I'm almost to the paper.
Thank you, past President Peter. Please be seated. We're here to introduce today's guests and visiting Rotarians, starting out Meredith Lamb. Meredith is an attorney at Lamb Law Office. She's been a Rochester Rotarian since 2016.
Good afternoon, everyone. President Jeff, Rotarians. Just one quick announcement. Coming up, the Sunshine Camp Trail Mix 5K and Beer Fest. Please get ready to run or drink or both. I'm personally going to do both. We're holding it at the annual Sunshine Camp Trail Mix 5K on Friday. It's October the 20th. So followed by a beer fest. You don't need to enjoy, you don't need to run to enjoy the 6 breweries. So you can either sign up for the run and the beer comes with the run, or you can just sign up for the beer if you don't want to walk that run. But it would be a good way to burn the calories, so I suggest doing that. You can get separate beer fest tickets. They're available at the Rochester Rotary and Sunshine Camp website. So now we're going to do upcoming birthdays. Please follow along with the Rochester Rotary 1 class. September 20th, Sean Farr. September 20th, Jeff Patton. September 21st, Heidi McPherson. September 22nd, Allison Formicola. September 23rd, Jerry Archibald. September 23rd, Dax Craig. September 25th, Patty Phillips. Turn page. Now I'm pleased to introduce today's visiting Rotarians and guests. Please stand when you hear your name called. Remain standing until President Jeff welcomes you all. Today we have visiting Mary Ellen Wood from Syracuse Inner City, Rochester. And we also have Dave Cannon from New York Rotary. And we also have Rick Starkey. Oh, and those are our visiting Rotarians. Now let's welcome our guests. Our first guest is Lynn Hallett, guest of President Jeff Hallett. Our second guest is Debbie Ballerino, guest of Carrie Falzone. And then our third guest is Rick Starkey, guest of Lee Kirk. And I want to say a couple of words. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today Mr. Kirk's special guest. His name is Major Rick Starkey. Major Starkey is Rochester's new executive director of the Salvation Army Corps. Major Starkey and his wife, Major Bethany Starkey, most recently served in Concord, New Hampshire. They were both officers and have been officers since 1995, and they have 3 children. And we'd like to welcome you. Thank you, President Jeff. Take scissors against.
Well, welcome to all of you, and as you are being seated, I want to tell you that this is a room full of people who are dedicated to service to this community. That Rochester Rotary has a three-legged purpose stool. The first one is our mentorship and partnership with School 8, the Roberto Clemente School, where we mentor students through graduation, and then we provide them, if they make it to graduation, with a state-level higher education. The second is we look after young people with disabilities, and that's through our Sunshine Camp in Rush. And the third is our work with Rotary International around the world, where we care for children and their families in so many ways. And one of those efforts you may have heard of is the eradication of polio. Each of the people at your tables has something to do with that mission, some aspect or more of those portions of our mission. And so I invite you to learn from them more about that. But before we move on, there's a lost item in my possession that could be back with its owner. It's a temple to Paris. It says Racing Collection Glasses. Anybody? Okay. Now for the news of the day. Make sure Don Pettis not in the city. Oh, where is he? Today with Don Halloran. He's the Associate News Director of 13 TV. He's a past district governor and past club president. He's been a Rochester Rotarian since about the year. Don.
Thank you, President Jeff. Yes, we are here, and I'll keep it short. You're going to be hearing from me when we do our interview in just a few minutes anyway. I know I'm going to regret this, but I couldn't help but turn to Peter after his reflection and remember the story you probably all heard, that when you see the geese flying in the sky, there's always one line of geese that's longer than the other. And you know why that is? There's more geese in that line. I knew I was going to regret that one. All right, a couple of quick updates. UAW strike still going on. The local is not involved in that, but they keep waiting day to day to see what their involvement may be. Jury selection continuing in the Calvin Vickers trial. He was charged with the death of our Anthony Zerkowitz. And jury selection, as of yesterday, was about 7 people. They may complete that today, but you can expect that really is quite a bit of a challenge. Challenge on Wall Street, the Dow was off 275 points, 34,348. NASDAQ down 113. S&P 500 down 31. Xerox is up 24 cents a share. Tootsie Roll keeps flying away on me. It's down 10 cents a share. Weather forecast right now, and we're into that fall weather that Peter was talking about. We expect a high today of about 68 degrees. Of partly cloudy skies, but we've got plenty of sunshine right now. Tomorrow, sunny, if you want to play golf this week, sunny tomorrow, 69 degrees. Sunny on Thursday, 72 degrees. Mostly sunny on Friday, 76 degrees. Few clouds on Saturday at 71. When we meet again next Tuesday, chance of showers at 70 degrees. Finally, just another reminder, and it's great to have with us our past district governor, David Hannon, who is also the chair of our Rotary Foundation, or the District 7120. And one of our themes this year is to try to get Rotarians to sign up for Rotary Direct. It's an easy way to do that, a wonderful way to give because it's deducted automatically. What we are doing this year, if you pledge to sign up for Rotary Direct, you give $100 a year this Rotary year, or just want to say, hey, I'm going to give $100 to the Rotary Foundation before the end of June. We honor you with our Rotary 1 in a Million bill. And on this bill is not only the Rotary logo, but the founders of Rotary on the back. So if there's anyone that wants to make that pledge right now, we'll give you your dollar bill. If you want to say, hey, I'm on board for $100 sometime this year. I news for today. We'll be back in a second with the rest of our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Do I start? Okay. We have a couple of announcements on upcoming events and opportunities. And for the first one, I'd like to invite forward past President Kathleen for a word about our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts.
Good afternoon, everybody. I like it up here. So I'm here today as a member of our DEI committee, and I'm also serving in the capacity of chair of our DEI initiative for District 71. And that is based on the fact that we as a club under past President Scott's year had introduced program one, and that took notice within the district, and so we've been asked to share what it is that we do in terms of upholding the standards, the charter of DEI. And so with that, you might remember that we had launched a working series. We've done 4 of those, and then we did a couple last year, and we've got another one coming up on October 4th. So if you mark your calendars, that is done over Zoom. And you might be wondering what we're going to talk about. Well, we're going to be talking about diversity of thought. I think we focus on a lot of things when we think of DEI. But diversity of thought is something very, very important. And when you have a multi-generational club such as ours, and we've got 17 committees, and we've got lots of people that want to get engaged and involved, being able to appreciate how we can engender innovation, creativity across the different generations, there are some unique ways to do that. And Tracy Archie, who is the Chief Diversity Officer of the RTRTA, is going to come and speak with us over Zoom that morning. So I hope you'll mark your calendars and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Past President Kathleen. And with another announcement, I'd like to call forward Heather Smith and Kerry Gonzo with some preview of the upcoming Rotary trade show.
Hello there. So, as we've shared before, we're resurrecting the trade show October 3rd. It is going to be preceded by the reconvene of the discussion with Franklin Covey. That will start at 4 o'clock. The trade show is from 5 to 7 at it is a convention, at the convention center. So it's a great opportunity to showcase your business and learn about what other Rotarians are doing. So there are cards at the table. You can buy a table to showcase your business, or just buy a ticket to the trade show to see what everyone's up to. So we hope to see you there.
So the tables, get the word out. Your fellow Rotarians that would need to promote their business, you know, it's reaching a large audience. And if we can just spread the word, and it's only 2 weeks away, that would be great. So it's $175 per table to be at the event.
And that does come with, that includes 2 tickets to the trade show itself.
Yep. There's a flyer on your table. If you have any more questions, Heather and I can help you after Rotary too.
Thanks very much for that, and some added information about the DEI session. It's on October 4th from 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 1 crisp hour of your day. I'd be lying if I said it didn't give me a great deal of pleasure to find my fellow Rotarians. Not because I wanted to fill your bank accounts, but because fines represent accomplishment and joy. And today's fine is really one of those. David Brown, would you please stand and tell us what momentous thing is happening in your life?
All right. Well, thank you, President John. Last Thursday, my girlfriend and I went up to Niagara Falls, and now I get to call her my fiance instead. 60, I'll give $60. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. Now to today's program. As our participants step forward and take up their positions, I'll tell you this. Our guest speaker is a retired vascular surgeon. And during his 40 years of teaching and active practice, he also maintained an interest in sailing and all things pertaining to the sea. He's written numerous magazine articles on safety at sea and founded Medical CPAC Company, which is dedicated to marine first aid preparation and education. In 1972, with 3 friends, he embarked on what was to become an annual sailing adventure, later to evolve into the Latrap Creek Historical and Ecological Society, which is also the subject of a book he wrote some years ago. He graduated from Harvard University and the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. He and his wife Janet live in Rochester. Please welcome Rochester Rotarian Dr. Ethan Welch.
Hold on to this one. You can have a
See right here.
I don't think that's going to fit in that clip. Hold on to that. If not, I can move this clip over.
There's 2 mics there.
I don't probably need, you know what? That was good. Yeah, I think we're good. I'm looking forward to this. When Kathleen approached me a few months ago to talk about this interview, I couldn't think of one that I would rather do. The challenge, as you just heard from the brief biography, the challenge in looking at all that Ethan Welch has accomplished in his life, all he has done for the medical community and the community at large, just try to condense this and cover his whole lifespan in this brief amount of time is going to be the biggest challenge at all. But I look forward to it, and I look forward to sitting down and picking his brain a little bit. And I want to go back first, if we can, Ethan, to Harnell, where you grew up, and just hear about some of the early influences in your life that kind of charted your eventual path. What were the things that really put you in the right direction?
Well, growing up in Harnell, there's a good friend that knows what growing up in Harnell is.
Admiral?
First of all, it's an old railroad town, and our family was there because my grandfather had been an engineer on the Erie Railroad in the Susquehanna Division. And so I'd say the number one influence that put me in the direction I went in. My father was a physician and surgeon, my mother was a school teacher, and he was a very hard worker, and I used to just simply follow him around. And I want to say one thing about that generation of physicians. We don't realize it now. Between about 1925, we graduated from University of Buffalo, and say in the early 60s, we had a cadre of physicians in the United States who did just about everything. They delivered babies, they set bones, they did surgeries, some of them very complex stuff, but it was an era of multidisciplinary, single physician work, which later, as science grew, developed into all of the multi-specialties that we currently now have. So I'd say those, and I'd say the second thing that influenced me is I was very much involved in scouting, and I credit those experiences with helping to further my goals.
I'm just curious about your dad. Was he a general physician?
Yeah, he was a general physician and surgeon. During the war, he was attached to the naval unit at Alfred University, and I would drive up with him every day. He'd have a clinic at 5 o'clock for the personnel. many of you do not know this, and that is that during the war there was a top secret Alfred University Center of Intelligence run by the United States Navy. And I used to go up there, and the sergeant would take me by the hand and take me down to the lower bowels of this place where he had a room about this size with maps all over the place of all the theaters of war, kept up to date to the minute. So that sort of influenced me in the idea that, boy, there's an outside world out there.
So, and we're gonna fast forward a little bit to your, early on, you were pretty much on the track to be a physician. Was that ever, any other alternatives ever considered?
I considered business the last year of my college career. As a matter of fact, I even made an appointment for an interview, and I decided, that's not gonna work.
So your dad is a general physician. That could have been a path for you, but you obviously narrowed the focus and not only decided to go into surgery and vascular surgery, but really make that a specialty. What?
Well, I think there's one comment very apropos, and that is that when I graduated from medical school in Hopkins in '57, there wasn't any vascular surgery. There were a few procedures that had been done, but there was no heart lung machine. There was no Dacron grafts. There was no advanced angiography. There had been some work done in getting good photos. So my aim was to do surgery, but I didn't have anything other than the idea that, well, I'll go out to the frontier and see what's there.
So Harvard and then Johns Hopkins, roots in Hornell. Is that what kind of brought you back to stay in New York State, and what led to the transition north here to the Rochester?
Yeah. Well, I was stationed at the Marine Hospital in Galveston, Texas. And had to find a place to start. And so my wife, Janet, is from Schenectady, and so she was the oldest in her family, and I was the oldest in my family. And we each wanted to be near our respective families. And so we said, well, let's find a place on the thruway.
I was thinking of that, and I paused for a moment because just yesterday we announced that the thruway tolls are going up, and that forced some of us in the newsroom to Google the fact that I think, and I remember as a child when the thruway opened and it was going to be paid for in completion. I think they finally extended, but 1996 it was supposed to be all done. And now we got rates going up 5% and a little bit more than that. We didn't talk about this, and I want to get into some of your writing in a moment, but in looking back over the career as a physician, the moments, good and bad, that really strike you from surgeries you perform, from relationships with the people that really have been a part of your fabric and stuck in your memory that won't let go?
Well, I think one word that I'd like to convey about what I thought most about was teaching. I spent most of my time when I got here from my first appointment was at St. Mary's Hospital as director of surgical residency. And then in 1966, I had the opportunity to form a partnership, but I also realized that in those few short years, the entire field of vascular surgery was developing, and so I went off and took a fellowship in Cincinnati, and then came back and practiced just vascular surgery from that point of view. But Dr. Charles Robb, who was president, or was chief had strong surgery at the time, gave me my appointment. And that first appointment was at St. Mary's Hospital. And so I have to also credit the wonderful atmosphere that existed here as a result of his appointment. He created a situation in which he extended the residencies to the community hospitals. And the internships and the students were all circulating in various capacities in all of the Rochester hospitals. And as a result of this, there was a very high academic attitude and atmosphere that persisted simply as a result of that organizational process, and as a result of the university sponsoring that extension. I still believe today that physicians should spend a lot of time in their training in their community hospitals rather than just in an academic atmosphere. I think it simply adds to it. So those are the influencing things that happen. I would hope someday that the university might take another look at this business of community hospital.
I'm just, as I listen to speak, and I think of surgery and dealing with patients, and I guess I keep going back to upbringing and background, but obviously the medical procedure is a major facet of what you've done. But the personal connection, the understanding and compassion that you have to have for patient after patient after patient, what brought that to your fore and what enables you to deal with those emotional moments, I'm sure?
Well, I think that the single word training comes to mind. I think that one could look at this and say, gosh, there must be an awful lot of stress involved in that. That's a big thing for you to stand on the one side of the table and have your resident on the other, and simply say, go ahead. Go ahead. It takes a bit of patience. I think in all the years that I've taught, I think there were only 2 or 3 instances in which I had to walk around the table and take a work.
It's got to be, I mean, I'm just thinking that because it's a life in your hands, but you know you've got to train that next generation. You've got to give them what you have and hope that they add to it.
That's right. I think I try to train by example. Even to the end. I retired in '95. Dave knows this story. People said, well, why did you retire then? I said, well, Goose Gossage. He was going out with the Yankees. Okay. Joe Montana, he was going out with the 49ers. I'm going out with them.
You know, one of the things you've done that is obviously will last a long time are the writings that you have done, and in many ways that is again part of the training you continue to give beyond. You can do that in retirement. You can do it beyond retirement. The things you've written. I'm wondering what led first of all to your desire to start putting things down on paper or in computer, or however they happen to fall.
Well, I really didn't start writing until I retired. And I wrote, the first book I wrote was called the Track Creek Chronicles. It was the first 35 years of sailing in various parts of the world with this group, of which I'm the only surviving founding member. So the reason that I did economics was because I was desirous of trying to teach some of the ideas that were in my head having to do with the public at large. I think that my observation is that of a lot of other writers is that the general public does not have a deep understanding of the origins of science and a firm understanding of the scientific method. And I think you have to have some sense of that in order to be an informed citizen. They say that only 20% of the public can understand when they read the New York Times science section each week. So I think it was the idea of a little bit of education, but a lot of muckraking. Because I began to realize as I got into this, how much fraud there is in the systems we have. I mean, Medicare Advantage, for example, which many of you have, that is costing you taxpayers in the federal government about $10 billion a year in overpayments that haven't been corrected. So it was a combination of being ticked off and wanting to inform.
I noticed in just, in looking over the promotion for the book, I noticed a correlation between fake news and fake medicine. And I can probably relate to that on both sides, I think.
Well, let me just mention one. Prevagen. Does everybody watch the TV and see ads of Prevagen?
I can't remember it, but no.
Well, I found Prevagen, and just to tell you, it's
We have to keep this
okay.
tap. That microphone is
So,
a fussy one for us.
how's that?
Is it directional, so he has to?
It just
Is
keeps
it, how
coming.
about that? Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Lead from the top, that's right, I got it done.
Got it?
Yep.
I got it.
Yeah,
Just as simple as everything else. Huh?
Prevagen is supposed to be from some jellyfish. Okay, well that right there set me off. That's and the reality of it, and one of the great things that we're going to have to do in the Congress is start running these supplements, all of them, through the FDA. It's amazing how many drugs are on the market that couldn't pass through the FDA because of various lack of effectiveness. But Prevagen was introduced, and it's supposed to improve your memory. Well, I read that paper, and many other people have, and there just isn't enough evidence. There's one section in that paper that shows some improvement in a very restricted group. The problem that came up is first of all, it's probably entirely absorbed in the stomach, and probably none of it ever gets to the bloodstream, let alone to pass the brain barrier and affect any of the brain. So it went to court in the state of New York, and to make a long story short, the judge who had decided that it was okay to put Prevagen on the market because he said there was a piece of literature that said it was all right. And he, as a judge, said, I am not a medical person, and I do not wish to do otherwise. And so it went through, and it went on the market, and then the state of New York, the Attorney General of the state of New York, filed suit. I went down to the courthouse the day they appealed it, and it was quite a scene. It was sent back down to the lower courts, and 2 years later, it was just simply thrown out. by the Attorney General for reasons that I cannot find out. And I've tried, I've written letters, et cetera, et cetera. But there it is on the market. And I might add that all of us are subjected to TV ads. Do you know that only 2 countries in the whole world allow advertisement of drugs on TV? The United States and, anybody? New Zealand.
I was just jotting down, 'cause I think if I look back on my childhood and watching television, I think Betty White doing a Geritol commercial is probably the one that comes to mind. But I want to follow up on that point because there are so many prescription drugs now that are advertised. I have to think that's got to create a challenge for any physician who has now the patient coming in saying, I saw this on television and this is going to cure me and I want you to prescribe it for me. That's got to be a big challenge for the community.
Big challenge. It certainly is. And this brings me to the FDA again. Big Pharma puts a huge amount of pressure on the FDA every year. It's amazing that they still do what they are doing. And I think we as citizens have to continue to remember that is a very, very important branch of government for us to support. And as far as the irritations that exist at every office when the patient comes in, I have no solution to that. That's going to continue.
That kind of brings me to where we are right now. Because I was talking at our table today, trying to contact CBS this morning and see if I need the next COVID shot and the flu shot and RSV and I go back again. I remember when the swine flu was here years ago. I went to the Presbyterian church to get a shot, and we didn't really think much about it now. How concerned should we be about just, I don't want to say blindly going, but it just seems to be an assumption now that if you're going to function in this world and you're not going to be a threat to other people, we really need to get all of these shots.
Well, I think it goes back to the relationship you have with your physician. If you have a good relationship, he's not going to, or she is not going to worry about advising you. They read the literature every day, and we can always go to the various websites that are reliable. It is confusing, and it was confusing, and I think part of this confusion resulted in the administration's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a study in mismanagement, to be barely charitable.
I'll leave that for the Q&A to follow, which I'm sure. I'll talk a little bit about, and I don't put all these together, the opioid crisis, but obviously when we talk about marijuana, we went through the stage of medical marijuana being prescribed, and now we're into recreational use of marijuana being permitted and retail outlets opening up. Should we be concerned? Or?
I think we should be very concerned, because what happens when you introduce marijuana to community, you induce a eventual 14%, that's an accepted figure, 14% of those people are going to be addicts. And it affects, secondly, the more sensitive group, which are the teenagers. It affects them and their brains, and that's one of the reasons I spent so much time in the book on the problem. I wrote a white paper when the hearings were on, discouraging the state from doing this. There is still a discrepancy between Schedule I and Schedule II drugs. I think the first order of business should have been, and ought to still be, the FDA should be funded to study the cannabis active medication which it has never done and never been funded. So that would be where I would start. Because what's going to happen is as you go further along, then the problems that have to be paid for by addiction become a cost of all of us.
You talk about the FDA, and I keep going even back to the COVID vaccine when it was in the news a week or so ago. First the CDC comes out, recommends it, then it has to go to the FDA. What is the correlation between those two groups, and how should we look at it from the patient point of view?
Well, first of all, they're independent institutions, and they are important ones. The CDC has its function, the FDA has its function. I think that part of the problem, and many of our leaders have been obstructive, literally. I'm not going to call out the governor of the state of Florida, but that's a situation to argue with a panel of experts who have spent years studying this stuff and say, well, don't do this or please do that, is the ultimate absurdity of politicizing absolutely everything. I mean, we got to the point in the damn epidemic where we were politicizing the wearing of masks. I mean, I wore a mask for 40 years and it didn't matter very much.
I'm just looking around the room to see if we have any on. No, we don't. I want to move in. When we were talking, I talked to Ethan a couple of days ago. I recall one other interview situation. This was when Lakeside Hospital brought in Walter Cronkite years ago, and he didn't want to do a speech. They always had a speech. He just wanted to do questions and answers. And a good part of our discussion talked about sailing, and it kind of struck me. Now I'm doing another sit-down interview with another distinguished person, and I'm searching in my mind for some connection between extremely successful and dedicated people and sailing. And I'm trying to see if you can piece that together for me, and what made that such a passion?
Well, it's all about teaching. When you go to, when you competently decide that you're going to be a captain of a boat, a charter or otherwise, look at all the things you have to attempt to learn. You have to attempt to learn, first of all, navigation. You have to learn seamanship. You have to learn boat handling. You have to learn how to dock. You have to do all sorts of things, how to obey the rules of the road. I think there's so much to learn. I think if I had to say the correlation in a parallel would be the emphasis on the education.
You retired in a sense, although not fully, maybe from practicing, but you're obviously still pursuing things through writing. You haven't retired really from sailing, and you were away this past weekend.
Yeah, we just spent the 50th anniversary of this sailing organization. It's an international organization called the La Trappe Creek Historical and Ecological Society. Well, you might say, well, where's the word sailing come in? Well, it turned out that one of the co-founders with me was a very brilliant young sailor who was also a Wall Street bond salesperson. And we were down on the La Trappe Creek, which is a tributary to the Chesapeake Bay on the eastern shore of Maryland. And we decided we would form this organization. And we said, what are we going to call it? Well, where are we? Well, we're in La Trappe Creek. Well, let's call it La Trappe Creek Society. It was that simple. and he said, I said, well, we'll add sailing. And he says, no, we're not going to say anything about sailing. I said, but it's a sailing organization, Carl. And he said, I want, when somebody calls my office and I'm not there, I want my secretary to say, he's in an ecological meeting. So
how many were in that? You got a position at Wall Street, what, I'm trying to get the.
Well, there's the guy from Wall Street I had met on Staten Island when I was stationed there at the Marine Hospital. The two others were both Kodakers.
Okay.
And we had taken the power squadron and the seamanship courses and all that. And Billy McGarry, who was this wonderful neighbor of mine, he'd been on a P-40 pilot and flew over Normandy on D-Day. And he came and sat around my kitchen and said, you know what? Let's get out of the sea and see if this stuff works. So that's how it happened.
I want to talk a little bit about Rotary in the community. Don Cameron, I think.
Yes, Don was a wonderful, wonderful guy, as you all know. And he and I served on the Rochester Regional Health Foundation Board. And he said, I want you to be in Rotary and meet all those people. I said, Don, any organization that's going to allow me to go to lunch every week, I'm in. And so when you're a surgeon, lunch is not something that you can plan.
If you go to the pond out there, that could be an ecological survey too.
Right.
You kind of weed it all together. What, I guess, the whole envision of Rotary and community service. Obviously, joining Rotary, Don Cameron's influence, what is a position that able to do, and maybe looking too to Rotary's goal to eliminate polio in the world. I'm sure is a vision for Dave Hannon. It's a big part of his life.
Yeah, I think the other thing, the polio thing was a big thing, but also the shelter box program. I know that we don't get involved because the international people take care of most of that. But I think the fact that Rotary is involved, look at the terrible crisis and awful events that happened just this year that ended up with people needing a tent to sleep under at night. And I always felt strongly about public service. I knew you might ask me about it, but I wanted to be sure I got that. I served 3 terms on the East Rochester School Board. And there are two stories I'd like to relate to that, because I did so while I was also as busy as I could be. So I had the cooperation of my team in being able to do that. But one thing that happened that was a good lesson was I won, and the budget passed one year by 1 vote. 1 vote. And the DNC sent a reporter down, not to the superintendent, but to the mayor, and said, you're going to have recount, aren't you? And the mayor looked at him and says, get out of here, don't you think we can count? The second thing I'd like to make on is that it was in the early 80s, and it was just at a time when computer technology and computer science was getting underway. And I formed up a small committee, and we passed it through the board that we would be the first kindergarten through 12th grade curriculum in computer science in the state of New York, which we did, and I think it has had a huge effect on all the graduates in that institution since that time. And I think just about everybody has it now, of course.
Since our president is almost leaving us, now that means time for a couple of questions. Yes. We want to get to that and see. I know we left a couple of things up in the air that you may want to pursue.
I just want to share, please. I just want to share a comment, which may kind of pull things together. I've known Ethan for nearly 50 years, and I'm part of the sailing group for probably 35 of those years. And of all the people I know in my lifetime, he's probably the best example of a Renaissance person. I've sat watching him do watercolors on the stern of a boat I watched them do starter studies and navigate in the old days with no electronics to find out, yeah, we're in 100 yards of where we think we are. I watched him sit down and play the piano. I've seen his children grow up and influence my children growing up. His community service is broad, and his wife Janet's. But the curiosity and energy, he's 92. We just came back Saturday from Annapolis, sailing that week in the Chesapeake. Just incredible curiosity. So if you have the chance to sit down with him at luncheon, do it, because you'll have topics you never even thought about. And just an amazing person. My good fortune to know you, Ethan.
Thank you, David. That's very nice. Fred?
Yes, sir. In our many lunchtime conversations there, I've developed nothing but the highest respect. And now that I know you're a sailor, I'm a Coast Guard Master 100-ton licensed captain. So we have going to the sea in common. But in any event, with the tremendous faith that I now have in you, would you take another flu shot, or did you ever take a flu shot?
Yeah, sure. I took the series, and I'm going to take the new booster when it's out. I have no problem being convinced that science did an absolutely incredible job developing within the time frame and developed it the vaccines that saved millions of lives. I think that your question also makes me think about the idea of why people are against science. I think it's part of a larger thing about being against government. And I think it all started with the Vietnam War. I think when people lost the sense of trust that has to exist between the governed and the governor, I think that we lost an enormous amount, if not our democracy. And we've got to regain that back with education and effort. And I think that we have to remember that science, people talk about Arabic science in the 13th century, and they talk about the Chinese science period. The truth of the matter is, the scientific method was a purely Western cultural accomplishment. It occurred as a result of the Enlightenment, and it is an absolute rock upon which we have built so much, and that we have to return to the integrity and trust that calls upon us to do.
One more, anybody? Okay.
Yes, I have one other question.
You mentioned reputable websites to check and read for our own knowledge. Can you share?
I'm sorry, can you
Reputable websites?
Oh, websites? Well, the CDC and the FDA have websites. I think that we also have sources within our hospital system that people here don't use. For example, the Rochester General Hospital has a corps of librarians, and they have access to a library. Well, it used to be at the hospital. It's now some way. But you call them, and they will look up anything for you, free of charge. So there are a lot of local resources that have to do with understanding the quality of what we already have here. Thank you for the good question.
As you know, part of our custom each week is to ask you to sign a book that's going to go in the library of our adopted school, Breton Elementary School number 8. And the title of this week's book is The 1950s.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also to thank you for sharing today this beautiful maple syrup made in our own Sunshine Camp. And the reason we're giving it to you is because it's full of medicinal qualities.
You don't work for pharmacy.
No big pharma involved. All natural, wholesome stuff.
Not fake syrup, it's good syrup.
Looking ahead at next week, do you love a mystery? Well, stand by, because we're not sure who's going to present. But we'll know soon, and we will alert everyone very shortly, Tracy tells me. And remember, as you heard earlier today, on October 3rd, Tuesday, it's the Rochester Rotary Trade Show and Trust and Inspire Workshop. So please keep your calendar for that one. Our thought for the day is the sail, the play of its pulse, so like our own lives, so thin yet so full of life, so noiseless when it labors hardest, so noisy and impatient when least effective. Henry David Thoreau. Meeting adjourned.